during this clan battle. Now, back in the 1800s, where my great grandfather Donald McKay was from before he came to Canada, the McKays actually had very little presence in Thurso compared to the Guns and the Keiths, who still lived there after the McKay dominance. But but the McKays became kind of the political rulers and actually stretched a clan territory all across northern Scotland, from Orkney, Inverness, all the way up to Caithness, all along the very north of Scotland. Now, the funny thing is about this period of clan war around the mid to late 1400s and early 1500s was that the McKays kept running into the Leslies, and I am a Leslie. That is the clan that I myself am a part of, as a descendant of my grandfather, who was a Leslie. My grandmother, his wife, was the McKay, and they married when they met in Canada, but had they met in Scotland, they probably wouldn't have been on such good terms. The Leslies were a lowland group who, seemingly in every conceivable battle or war, they fought against each other, including a sept of the Leslies, the Oliphants, who one time laid claim to lands that the Keiths owned, who were a sept of the McKays, which ended up with a massive battle and war between the Leslies and the McKays. And though the Leslies were a lowland clan, they actually lived very north in Scotland, very close to the Highlands where the McKays lived. They lived in Aberdeenshire, which was originally named Leslie, which is where the clan got their name from. They're actually descended from Hungarian nobility from the year 1000 who came to Scotland. But they would constantly be in conflict, and this led to the Leslies being kind of strange in a way, because they're almost a combination of Highland and Lowland, because they lived geographically in the Highlands. They were a lowland clan, and the Leslies actually fought against the McKays in the Jacobite uprisings. So you think about that, you have a Highland clan fighting alongside the English against a lowland clan fighting alongside the Catholics and the Spanish, and trying to install a Highland king in Scotland. It's kind of strange. It's a funny thing about history, I guess. So the McKay So though the McKays seem to really control a lot of power in Scotland, which they did, they controlled a vast amount of territory in Scotland, one of the largest territories owned by a single clan. The McKays kind of went into decline around the late 1700s, early 1800s, which is around the beginnings of the Highland clearances. The most devastating time for the McKays was the clearing of Strathnaver in 1818, and though the actual city itself of Strathnaver wasn't cleared, many of the outlying villages were. They were completely leveled, meaning the McKays really they had to leave. They couldn't stay. They had nothing to do. They couldn't live anymore in the land that was now being overtaken by sheep, which led to a lot leaving for Canada, and especially Nova Scotia at the time, and Australia. Many also went to Glengarry, though they were much more a minority than the MacDonalds who lived there. The McKays, after this this crushing blow in Strathnaver, which it was the the seat of the McKay clan, it really the McKays then really started to go downhill. Many McKays moved to the Netherlands and Sweden, where they worked as mercenaries, and led to both the Swedish and Dutch septs of McKay. The Dutch McKays, I believe they're called the Von Kays, or something along those lines. They actually became very well known in the Netherlands as warriors who fought for the Dutch. And the same in Sweden, where the McKays rose to I'm going on a tangent. As the clearances continued and the Lord's maltreatment of the people became more and more common and more outrageous, even the Lord of Strathnaver was asked to raise troops for the Crimean War for a Highlander regiment, and many Highlanders, and especially the McKays, even though they were known as great warriors, resistant. And one Highlander once said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that should the Tsar of Russia take over Scotland, it would not be any worse than it is now. And so this phrase it really embodies what the people felt at the time. They felt hopeless, and that nothing really was going right. They were being greatly wronged, and they saw their lords as despots that were ruling them, driving them into the ground, and taking their land so that sheep can graze instead. So around the time of my great-great-great-grandfather Donald McKay, he was born in Thurso in 1829, which is right after the great clearances of Strathnaver. He came to Canada in 1858. Now, I've tried to do research around the time of 1858, what was happening in the clearances, and for some reason in what I found, seems to be a gap in records of what happened. There are very detailed records of what happened in the clearances up until around 1855 or so, and then it kind of drops off between that and around 1865 or so. So he left either in a time when they stopped keeping records, maybe because it got so bad, or maybe there was a lull in the clearances, but I highly doubt that because of what I found. He left around 1858 after the Strathnaver clearances. This is around when clearances are starting to happen in Caithness. So he left in 1858 along with his brother Sandy McKay, and they went to Canada. They went to Belleville, Ontario at first. And so what I found was right after they left, starvation in Caithness went to such a high that the people of Thurso attacked the Lord's castle trying to get at grain shipments, and the Lord was so frightened he called in the military, and the military came in and killed all the people trying to get into the grain. And this happened in Thurso, the small little village where he had just left. So luckily he left right before things got to the brink of, well, slaughter. But he obviously left as a result of the clearances coming to Canada. Now they came to Belleville, which wasn't exactly a very big destination for people coming over from the Highlands. It was a loyalist community founded by American refugees after the American War of Independence, loyalists who moved to Canada. But he landed in Belleville, Like I said, not a whole lot of people from Scotland living in, or recently from Scotland living in Belleville. So after a while, his brother Sandy went back to Scotland. We don't know why, but the funny thing is, he was able to come back to Canada a few times. He went back to Scotland and was able to make the trip at least 3 or 4 times, always visiting and then leaving. He stayed unmarried through his life, which was again very, very strange for the time. But he somehow fell into enough money, and he wanted to ride the immigrant ships more than a couple times. So we don't know why he kept going back and forth from Scotland and Canada, but he did. He left his brother in Canada to start a family, and he married the daughter of another Scot, George Sire, who had moved to Millbrook, and they he married Susan Sire in 1861. They moved to Owen Sound, and they had 8 children. And Owen Sound, even though many people don't know this, but even just looking at a map, if you look at Owen Sound, you can see there are hundreds of Scottish place names all around Owen Sound. It actually was a very big destination for Highlanders coming to Canada. Up around Georgian Bay, Lions Head had a huge Scottish population. So then his children, he had 8 kids, as I said before, and they founded the McKay Brothers, which was a dry goods store, and it's now known as a landmark in Owen Sound. It's the store itself, the business is gone, but the building is still there, and it's a landmark, and the McKays are very well known in Owen Sound. And they eventually changed their name to McKay to anglicize it to become more English, as even though there was a huge Scottish population in Owen Sound, Gaelic wasn't spoken, because it was seen as even back then it was seen as undignified. It was seen as a hick tongue, what farmers spoke, and so people were very afraid to speak the language. So very soon after coming from Scotland, the McKays lost touch with their roots, and so this McKay family has even been to some point separated from other Mackays who came to Glengarry and Nova Scotia during the same time as the same result. But the McKays have, as a result, my McKays have been somewhat separated from the Scottish community, and only now we're trying to go back and learn about the past and see why they came over, obviously as a result of these clearances. After the Strathnaver clearances, he came to Canada, anglicized his name, and built the city around us. There's Peter McKay, who everybody probably knows. He's a member of Parliament and deputy leader of the Conservative Party. And then there's Alexander Bain, who Bain is a subset of McKay, and he decided to create a